Do you dream of traveling the world for months or even years on end? Long-term travel is an amazing experience that can change your life, but it's important to be prepared. In this video, I'm sharing 6 tips for long-term travel that will help you make the most of your adventure. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. Okay, let's get started with tip number 1. If you want to get the most out of long-term travel, only make plans a couple of months in advance. Let me explain. When I took off for world travel the first time, I had 6 months of travel booked on Airbnb. I was so nervous and excited to have everything figured out, but it turns out that it really limited my flexibility. First of all, I decided to go home after 5 months, and that meant that I lost a few $100s on a booking I had for a house in Montenegro. You may feel nervous that you'll miss out on a deal, but there is always something available for a good price. Initially, when I started making my plans, I was planning on house sitting. I broke down and booked Airbnb stays because I was too nervous to wait until house sits had become available. I could have really saved a lot of money by house sitting. Even though my Airbnb stays were great deals, they aren't free stays like you can get with house sitting. If you want to check out my favorite site for house sitting and see all of the amazing listings, I'll leave a link for it in the comments. Honestly, some of the homes listed on house sitting sites are really luxury, and although I did love the little Airbnbs I booked, they were more like budget stays. Another benefit to house sitting is that you're often looking after a cat or a dog, which can be a wonderful bit of company when you're solo on the road. Anyway, I'm not saying to wait until the last minute to know the next place you are going, but if I were to do it again, I would always be booking 1 month out. Like if I was starting in France, after I arrive in France, I'll decide where I want to go next. Tip number 2, when preparing for long-term travel, do your cultural research. Please, I beg of you, don't be that American. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, it's the American travelers that are loud, completely oblivious to cultural norms, and demanding that everyone speak to them in English. Unfortunately, it's a real thing. Listen, I don't claim to be the perfect traveler. There are many cultures from around the world who have been incredibly gracious to me when there was something I didn't know. It's not that you'll know everything and get it perfect all the time, but it's more the attitude of entering a culture with humility and respect, doing your best to honor the culture, trying to learn a few of the basic words in the language, and having a genuine curiosity about their way of life. If you can't do that, you probably shouldn't be doing international travel. Personally, learning about the culture and way of life is one of my favorite things about long-term travel. It's really hard to grasp if you're only in a place for a few days, but long-term travel can really let you delve into the beauty of life lived around you. All right, let's get to tip number 3. For long-term travel, I personally believe a VPN is a must. If you don't know what that is, it stands for Virtual Private Network. This is something you can turn on anytime you are using public Wi-Fi. For example, if you connect to the Wi-Fi in the airport or at a coffee shop, you are incredibly vulnerable to having your accounts hacked that you access while you're on that Wi-Fi. Don't just think bank accounts, which is bad enough. This could be your email, your Instagram, or any other account you open. I have some horror stories I could tell you, but I don't want to drag this on too much. I have a whole video about the importance of a VPN for travel, so if you want those details, be sure to check that video out. I've been using a VPN for years now, and it has come in handy in a lot of other situations too, including the ability to book cheaper flights, the ability to watch shows I wanted to that weren't permitted in particular countries, and more. I think the cost can literally be less than $3 per month, and it is so worth it. If you want to check out the VPN I've used for years, I've got a link in the description. All right, let's get to tip number 4. If you're going to be a nomad, it is really important to stay connected. Be intentional about having conversations with friends and family before you leave, and let them know that you want them to call and be in touch as often as they would if you were at home. A lot of times people feel like you're off traveling the world and don't want to be bothered, but the truth is that long-term travel is a lot like normal life, just in a different location. And when you're only in a place for a month or two, even if you meet new friends in that area, area, chances are you're not going to have a deep relationship that quickly. When it comes to new people that you meet, a lot of your conversations are going to feel the same. That's why it's important to keep up with people from home. It doesn't have to be everyone, but have 2 or 3 people who you video chat with or talk to on the phone regularly. I would also suggest that when you do have conversations with new people, have a few good questions in your back pocket that lead to differing conversation so that you avoid feeling like a robot on repeat. Here's tip number 5. If you're doing long-term travel on a budget, don't underestimate the cost of transportation. Let me explain. When I booked my 6 months of travel, I chose the locations based on where I could find a cheap Airbnb for a month. I knew that once I was in Europe, I could get flights from country to country for as little as $50, sometimes less. But the main thing I underestimated was local transport if I wasn't staying in a big city. When I went to Italy, I was staying in a small town. There was one bus that ran once or twice per day. It was very hard to figure out, and getting to and from Rome on a couple of occasions was literally the hardest time I've ever had getting anywhere. I really wished I had rented a car, but I didn't have that very important international driver's permit. It's super easy to get from your local AAA office. If you want to learn more about it, I have a video right up here. Anyhow, that would have made a huge difference for me. After that trip, I thought I had it figured out. Cheap car rentals are everywhere. In Spain, even now in 2023, I just rented a car from the Valencia airport for 11 days, and the total cost is $72 US. I think that's pretty incredible. However, it won't always be like that. When I went to Montenegro in 2019 with my friend, we were going to stay in the city of Bar. The house we rented for the entire month was less than $500, but a car rental was going to cost more than our Airbnb. I had never been to a location before where the car rentals cost more than the accommodations, and we were screwed. We didn't want to spend that much money. Public transport was okay, but not awesome. So we spent a couple of weeks walking 30 minutes into town every day, and then getting a taxi when we had groceries or if it was raining. Then we did rent a couple of cars for short periods of time. So the lesson here is that if you find a great place to stay for a great price, figure out what your transportation needs are going to be before you commit. It may often be worth it to stay in a big city that has great public transport and pay a little more for your accommodations because it will actually save you money if you end up having to get an expensive car rental. I have found that car rentals, much like flights, are best priced around 4 to 6 weeks ahead. It's not foolproof, but that's usually what I go with. All right, moving on to tip number 6. If you're traveling for a long time, don't overpack. That was the biggest mistake I made on my first trip. After arriving in Greece a few months into my travels, I went through my bag and realized that I had about 10 things that I hadn't used at all. We tend to take all kinds of extra precautions when we're traveling, but think of it this way. If you wouldn't pack it for a trip in the US, then you probably don't need it anywhere else either. An example is a portable phone charger. If you never use one in the US, chances are you'll never use it while you're traveling either. And the truth is, portable phone chargers are everywhere. So if you start traveling and realize that you need one, you just buy it. It's not that complicated. What tips do you have? Be sure to leave a comment. I'd love to have some conversation with you below. I'd also love it if you would like this video and subscribe to join me every day where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.